All right, so I think we are back for what is maybe month 7 of tracking my Korean learning journey. So this video is like one day late. Just totally forgot about this last night. But here we are, have some interesting and not so interesting updates for you guys. So let's just start with the general ones first, just dive right into it. Moved somewhere new for the summer. And yeah, started a new internship. So super busy with work. And work is really rough, it's just a lot more hours than I'm used to. But I mean, I'm keeping up with my Korean. That's pretty much like the main thing I keep up with nowadays is just like learning Korean. I feel like it provides a pretty nice like mindset switch from work, especially when I was very much focused on input. I would just come home from work and just like try on a podcast or something, just do some chill sentence finding. So it didn't really feel like a lot of effort. But now if I'm gonna start doing output, which is something I'll talk about later, um, then it'll just be rough, So it's just gonna take a lot more mental capacity to do. But yeah, I mean, as I said, super heavy input month for kind of that reason. So reading, actually did some reading. I don't know if you would call it like reading because it's not any sort of formal reading, but I read a lot of comment sections. I kind of made an effort to do that, just like watching reels and stuff. Like I tried to curate my reels so that they're more Korean. And yeah, and reading the comment sections is nice because I'm just like picking up on a lot of random slang and just like the way Koreans type because they don't like space things correctly, or they like drop letters and use like abbreviations and stuff. So while like strictly from academic perspective it's probably not the most useful, but I mean, one, I am reading, which is always useful, and two, it helps integrate a bit with like native culture. And then some other things I tried, DC Inside, which is obviously very controversial. I tried reading an article and it just completely failed. Like it's actually ridiculous how much slang they use, and how rough the sentences are to read. I mean, it's like if Reddit were on steroids. And then I tried reading neighbor blogs, but there's just too much specialized vocab that I'm not there yet. Maybe eventually when I start kind of going down more of topic fluency tracks, then I can use neighbor blogs as a useful tool, because neighbor blogs I think are split into almost like subreddits. I don't know what they're called. They have different threads maybe for different topics. So that might be a good resource in the future. I also try reading NamaWiki. NamaWiki is just fun to read, even though like I can't read it. I mean, it's just like more about like the pop culture stuff I care about in Korea. So yeah, I mean that's just something I try to read, and in the future I think I'll be using NamaWiki as like a pretty big reading resource, especially since my goal is not necessarily to like be super academic, and NamaWiki is the opposite of academic, but but I kind of want to be able to express myself like a casual native would. So I think NamaWiki might be a good resource for that too. Writing. Oh, I mean, I think interesting. Okay, I forgot to edit this. So I'll just kind of talk through this as I go. Writing. I like wrote some like diary entries. This is something that I'm trying to do in order to practice more output, and also I've been like randomly like picking opinion prompts, and like responding with a couple of sentences. This is kind of helping me because I'm seeing kind of the difference between me speaking and not having time to think versus writing and having time to think, and obviously my writing is just much better. So yeah, I think the other thing that's not really writing, but it includes the word writing, is handwriting. So I've been kind of working on handwriting, partly for fun and partly because it'll be something that's useful to me in the placement tests in the future. I just there's a lot of like letters that I've been working on like writing nicely. So like hie lil, what else, like mium too, like not necessarily closing out the box as much. I mean, what else is I mean, I definitely, oh yeah, this, I don't even know what the name of this letter is. And yeah, like some others, just trying to have a more like flowy style, and try to just write more cleanly and quicker. So I think, um, yeah, like handwriting is low-key underrated if you want to, if you actually want to handwrite. Anyway, Speaking wise, did not do like really any speaking at all, maybe until the last like couple of days. So yeah, I mean, I did like 1 hour like this morning, in a HelloTalk voice room, or 1 or 2 hours, but like a lot of that time was wasted talking in English and Chinese. I didn't do any italki, which is kind of sad. It's something I really want to go back to, but ever since I, like left the other place I was living at and just been, I mean, I've moved around like 3 times in the last month, maybe. Just like going between like different places, or maybe in the last like month and a half. And I was like hella sick in the meantime. I just like don't really have the energy to go back to italki, but I could definitely see myself going back. uh Maybe, with like Sana. I think like Sana is like really good. And she's kind of the type of teacher I really need, like as of this moment. Don't really need to work on grammar or pronunciation or anything like that. Mostly just need to um get the output hours in. And yeah, so one thing I didn't mention was like pronunciation. So I mean, and I'll talk about this all more at the end probably, but like been trying to focus more on my pronunciation, and I think recording is like super helpful. Recording myself, it's yeah, I mean, I always talk to myself before, and I always was like, oh, when I speak and I hear myself talking, I think my pronunciation sounds pretty good. But there's a couple of things. One thing, it's not as good as I thought it was, and the second thing is it severely deteriorates whenever I am actually speaking. And I think that's just, the overloaded mental capacity of, oh, I have to juggle finding the correct vocab, using the correct grammar, keeping track of what I'm trying to say, and pronouncing it correctly. It's just a lot of mental strain. And so that's something that I could definitely keep working on. But yeah, more on speaking at the end and output in general. I have something really interesting at the end to share, and so yeah, stay tuned for that. Listening wise, I mean, again, I mentioned this is an input heavy month, and my basically I equate input to listening. And so yeah, music, all of these artists, and I even started listening to like girl groups again, which is like kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, these artists are good, and I generally just try to listen to music like without too much English lyrics nowadays. Just even when I'm listening to music, try to immerse a bit. 10% immersion is still immersion, right? Content wise, been watching some like short web dramas, just like those random ones. I guess like one thing I didn't mention is just reels. I don't know like how worth this is, like how good this actually is, but I just like whenever I'm brain rotting, rather than brain rotting in English content, I brain rot in Korean content, and I think that probably has some degree of efficiency over the long run. I mean, although if I just sat down and studied and like actually sentence mine, it would obviously be better than brain rotting, but gotta give myself a break sometimes. The other thing is like I've been watching like this channel called Yuhue Pianore. And she just like her videos are basically just like stream summaries of her talking about random things, just generally related to like romance, and it generally is like pretty stupid, I think. Like her takes are, I mean, I won't go too much into detail, but I think like her takes are just, rather on the childish side. But in terms of like, content that I care about, there's like not too much right now. So the fact I found her channel and I can understand it a bit, like it's definitely very comprehensible to me. I would say like in the 60 to 70% ballpark overall, but when I do comprehend chunks, I comprehend them in 80+%. So those chunks are the ones I'm kind of indexing on and fixating on. So yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just part of the learner's journey, struggling through content you don't care about. And this, at least I could like pick up vocab from this like this region or whatever, this field that I care about, right? Okay, so content wise, that's it. Podcast without script. So yeah, still listening to Didi. Didi is getting easier and easier by the month, which is a really good measure of progress. And yeah, every time I listen to Didi, I feel pretty proud because I remember thinking back in January that I'll never be able to listen to a podcast that's fully in Korean, and now like Didi feels like super chill to me. So and it's only really been 5.5 months since I thought that way. All things Korean, still really good. Still just slowly working through his like 4 hour long like podcast about like love and like relationships. That one is like really interesting. And they use some interesting vocab and talk in a way that is not just spamming grammar. So I think that's really nice for me. I've been listening to a podcast meant for natives called Yodur Talk. And this one's actually really nice. Like they have really good quality mics. It's actually crazy how good their mics are. And they talk about interesting things, and I obviously have like trouble, like a lot of trouble keeping up because they they don't talk fast, but they talk at like they talk at quite a rapid speed, and they use pretty complicated vocab and grammar, more so than I think the average like conversation would, and that's through the nature of them being like sort of a like a prepared podcast, even though they don't have a script. And so yeah, but I've been using them, one just to listen to on the way like to or from work, or just like whenever I'm like doing something with like with my hands and I want to listen to something. um and I think that's like they sound really good and just are pleasant to listen to. And the other thing is that like I've been pretty much just mining their content for, and I just started this like this week, so I'm not too experienced with it yet. But I've been trying to mine their podcast for sentence starters that I would like, sentence connectors that I would like to use, like types of grammar that I find interesting, and things like that. So I just kind of write them down and then input them later on, like or I guess like input them into my like output routine later on, whenever I do want to use them. So yeah, so they're really nice. Highly recommend if you're, I almost want to say like if you're like high B1, like B2, then you could probably use it. I'm like low B1, so I'm probably using this. It was just a bit early, but their episodes are like over an hour long. They have like over 100 of them, so I'm not worried about running out. And even if I do run out, I can just listen to them again. So yeah, I mean, really nice podcast. Highly recommend. Podcast with scripts, DM Korean podcast. I think I mentioned this last week too. Just overall high quality content, with subtitles, which is the biggest thing, so that I can sentence mine. And also Ginny's Korean podcast. She has some interesting content also about like Korean culture. And she talks at a pretty good pace with like good verbiage. But the problem is that like she used to have Korean subs and now she doesn't. So honestly, like I might go in the comment section just like ask her to put Korean subs back so that I can sentence mine her content, because her content's like really nice to sentence mine, but it's so frustrating when it's just hard subtitles. Okay, cool. That's listening. Grammar wise, yeah, not much. I'm like doing like very little to no grammar study nowadays. I feel like I don't really need it. I feel like I can kind of infer grammar at this point, at like my B1 ish level. Like honestly, my listening is probably like mid B1. So at this point, I know the most common like 150, 200 grammar forms, and that's all I really need. And sometimes I still find a grammar form that I don't know, but it's much less of a priority for me to like look it up. And this is kind of bad in the long run, because in the long run I want to continue to improve my grammar. But again, I don't really plan to do change this anytime soon, especially with how I'm going to focus more on output within the next like couple of months. So yeah. Vocab wise, sentence mining still, but sentence mining is just really hard. Like, I mean, I told you I gave up on 10 new words a day a long time ago, but as you can see in the stats section later, I'm just like not mining that much. Anki, same thing, I mean, same thing, same four decks that I'm doing. Kimchi Reader, sentence mining deck, the Kimchi production deck, my core deck of vocab, and also the Hanja deck. So, um, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take that much time every day. I mean, it takes like a solid like 40, 45 minutes, but like most of the time, like, instead of like scrolling reels at work, I just like do this instead, get my Anki done for the day. So yeah. Stats wise, pretty good. I was like looking at this, so I think it's like fairly similar to last month with a few caveats. The first thing is like 21 hours of Kimchi Reader, pretty good. Didn't get an hour a day, but that's okay. Um, Kimchi Reader Words Mind. Same thing. I think it's like very similar. And the thing is, like for the scene, like my scene, like really popped off this month. What is that? Let me do the math. That's 2939. Yeah, 2939 total. Known and plus scene. But this is partly because like I started marking English loanword scenes, so I probably got like 100 something freebies. Because I used to not do that. It's like I used to just like leave them unknown, which I realized was kind of stupid, because the whole point of the scene marker for me is that I'm able to understand it, but I'm not able to use it. And I think, yes, like I'm not able to use it right now, even though they're English loan words, because I don't know which words are loan words. It's hard to tell, if I want to say um, computer, right? Like, it's just, I don't like know if that's a loan word. And in this case, it is, but it's like a different one. So yeah, or if I want to say apple, like obviously apple's not a loan word. So yeah, I mean, I just like can't classify them well yet, but I think like obviously if I hear them, it's an English loan word, I can understand it. So yeah, no italki, like one hello talk hour and like a couple output hours this month. So the total hours comes out to about 48. And definitely more, like I mean, if I had to guess, it would be in like the 60 something range if I had to incorporate like brain rot time plus like time listening to just like podcasts and stuff plus time listening like watching content that's like not on kimchi reader stuff. Like it was probably in the 60 something range, which would average over like 2 hours a day, which is something I'm still happy with. But yeah, I mean, officially just under 50 hours. And yeah, this is what I really want to talk about this month. So yeah, one thing is like progress is like super slow, and I mean I've probably complained about this before, but the intermediate plateau is like definitely hitting. I'm at the point where I definitely like can't measure visible progress as much. It's not like, oh, I could suddenly understand something that I couldn't understand before. It's more of just like small wins, like, oh, I like picked up like one vocab word here, one grammar point there, and I can understand one chunk of this podcast. So the wins are smaller and fewer and far between, but fewer and further between. But the intermediate plateau is real, guys, and I definitely really want to push through it. I mean, in my calculations, I've spent around 400 hours hitting this point, and I don't want to let that go to waste. Even though my Korean is probably sufficient to go to Korea already, it's just like, I want to hit like a level that's almost as good as my Chinese. Because like even when I go to China and as a heritage speaker of Chinese, I obviously like sound a lot like quite natural, even though I have like my uncanny valley moments. But if I go to China, it's still really hard to keep up a conversation. Like my Chinese was like quite strong when I went back for the last time, but even when just like trying to have like an extended conversation with somebody, I couldn't talk like I'm talking now in English, right? I had to slow down a lot. I had to change up what I was gonna say in order to fit the vocab that I was able to use. So yeah, I mean, but I mean, so I like even at that point, with my heritage like B2 C1 Chinese, I still felt somewhat uncomfortable. So I think if I could get Korean to like a B2 level, because um, I mean, for Chinese, I have less of an excuse because I'm a heritage speaker, but for Korean, since I'm not, I have more of an excuse. So, as long as I can kind of get by, even if my conversation speed is slow, even if my speed of conveying is slow, I think that's okay. So, yeah, I mean, can't give up, but obviously, it takes the total amount of time it takes to go from a zero to B1 is the same amount of time it takes to go from B1 to B2. So, I'm in it for the long run. Yeah. Other kind of small question I had is hanja a waste of time? I feel like a lot of the hanja I'm like practicing now is low key just kind of useless. There's just so much like hanja that's not. I don't like see myself using. So I was gonna say like should I just find the most common ones, like the ones if like there's like a set of 100 that could cover over 50% of use cases, like just familiarizing myself with those 100 like might be sufficient, right? And then maybe I can do something else with that time. But I mean, to be fair, like I don't really need to decrease my Anki time right now because like at work, like I can't do other types of studying. So like while I'm like taking like coffee breaks or something, or just like instead of like brain rotting for like 2 minutes at a time, I like get through like three Anki cards or whatever, right? So I mean just maybe a thing for the future once like I could actually replace Anki time with like real studying. Okay, and this is what I really want to talk about is my speaking plan. So I have a placement test coming up, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but it kind of like I just kind of realized in the middle of this month that like dang, my placement test is gonna be the first couple of days of August, and it's already the end of June, and I just cannot speak. Like my speaking is so choppy. I'm speaking like at an A2 level, even though I feel like my skills are just much better than that, and I think I can represent myself in a much better way if I were to practice this. And obviously, I've told you that like work has been quite difficult. So when I come home, I'm just kind of drained and want to just chill and watch like content. But I'm trying to force myself to engage more in speaking. And so this is kind of the speaking plan that I have in order to prepare for the placement test. Give me, yeah, okay. So the first step, or the 0th step pretty much, is mining content for sentence connectors, starters, and interesting grammar I want to use. And this is what I was talking about with the old word talk. Just listening, writing down what I want to use, things that I understand and I feel like I could incorporate into my daily usage, I try to write down. And then I sketch out. So I guess the first step I do is like I find a topic, and the topic could really be anything. But I mean, I'm just like going down this like New York Times list of topics, and I ask the LLM, I paste in the topic, and I ask the LLM for kind of related target expressions and grammar that I should use. So I just tell it like, oh, I'm a B1 level learner, so give me like B1 level vocab and B1 level grammar that I could like try to incorporate into like a speaking session. This takes a couple minutes. And then I sketch out how I'll respond vaguely. So I write down the kind of vocab that I want to use. I write down the grammar that I want to use. I write down the sentence connectors and starters that I want to use, the grammar, etc. Just kind of write all this down, and like I draw it down very vaguely. Like I'm not writing out a script or anything. I'm just like, oh, these are the points that like I might want to hit. And then whenever I'm speaking, I can just like take a look down, like, oh, I like saw this grammar point, like I'll try to use it. And I think this is just good for me because otherwise, like if I don't do this, you could think that this is like cheating, right? Like obviously when you're like actually speaking, like right now when I'm speaking this, when I'm like narrating this video episode, I'm not like looking down at something and like referring to, oh, this is a vocab word I could use, this is a grammar point I could use in English. Like I'm not doing that. But the problem with like not having a reference like this is that you'll just stick to the most simple things. You'll just stick to 쓰다 instead of 사용하다. You'll just stick to the most, like, instead of like 그렇긴 한데, you'll just use 그런데, something like that, or you'll just use 하지만. Those types of things are, you could just stick to what you're comfortable with, but the whole point is that I want to push myself out of this like A2 ceiling, into the next level. Like at least I want to speak like B1. And so yeah, I mean, I think this is just something that's really useful for me. And the next part is I just speak to myself. And I put 5 minutes, but realistically I should be aiming for like 2 to 3, 3 or 4, because I'm prepping for like the interview part of the placement test, and I'm not going to be talking for 5 minutes straight during that. So I speak to myself, and then I stop and just like think about like what I could have done better. So which ones I like, which grammar points I didn't use, which vocab I didn't use, was there a place where I like really stuttered, and like just try to think about how I can improve it. So just spend a couple minutes, take a quick break, and then I speak to Whisperflow. So Whisperflow, if y'all don't know what that is basically like an AI voice transcription app. It's like, it has a Korean functionality, and it's actually really good. One kind of caveat I thought was an issue with Whisperflow, but now I'm realizing is a good thing, is that Whisperflow, if you use it for English, it kind of automatically filters out all of your filler words. So if I were to put this audio transcript of this video in to Whisperflow in English, it would probably get rid of all my ums and hms and all of that. But in Korean, it doesn't do the same thing. I'm not exactly sure why. I think a lot of filler words in Korean could also just be words with meaning. For example, if I use the word like 그게 or 그, something like that, those words could hold meaning. So I think Whisperflow doesn't really filter them out as aggressively. But yeah, I just speak to it, try to use like as much of the verbiage and sentence connectors, sentence starters, grammar as I can. And then I listen to the audio that comes out, so you can extract the audio from your recording. And then I kind of, before I get any other feedback or review, I just note down the questions that I've had or the mistakes that I made. So this is just purely like testing whether I can identify my own mistakes. And then I plug into an LLM skill. So this is something I wanted to show you. So I'm using Gemini, so there's not really any skills, but they have something called gems. And I just have one called like Whisper Fix, and then it's just like, oh, you're given a text, create a transcription, so there's a lot of fillers, but you want to stick to like the original length as possible, even though you're outputting a revised paragraph. So basically what I get it to do is like you output like an edited version of my verbal transcript that tries to keep as much of the grammar that I used, as much of the ideas that I used, but improve it minimally in small ways. So you can almost think of this as like the I+1 version of speaking, in the sense that like I'm trying to like create like a minimal diff between the my original transcription and the new outputted transcription that has been edited by Gemini. And so this should basically be a very smooth transition between what I said and what I could say, so that I could actually pick up stuff. Because for example, if I went from this to like a C2, like from the transcription that I spoke to like a C2 level transcription, I just like wouldn't be able to understand it and I wouldn't be able to use it, right? But here, trying to make like a minimal change to try to make incremental progress. And then I get it to like explain how like connectors and grammar can be improved and try to recommend like new connectors and grammar. And then I like have a section where I just like work on improved vocab. And yeah, so yeah, I mean, this is just like a really nice prompt that I have, and then I just like take my whisper flow thing and then I paste it in. Like, oh yeah, these are like some of the recent ones I've been using. Um, like I just pasted it here, and the Gemini outputs something that's like actually really nice. So yeah, I mean, that's just kind of AI hack I've been using. Gemini is like not even that good. If I could use Claude, I would, but I don't feel like paying for it right now. But I think Claude would like do an even better job at this, for example. So yeah, after doing that, I just kind of like go paragraph by paragraph through my target response. So yeah, I have like, so the target response generally is like split into a couple paragraphs, because whenever I answer these like questions, I generally break them down into like a couple of points, right? So each paragraph, I just kind of read through it really slowly, try to internalize as much of it as I can, and then I try to spit it all back out without looking at the transcript. I just kind of like, try to remember as much as I can and try to speak as much of it as I can. So yeah, I think that's been like pretty useful for me, I think. And the total loop kind of comes out to 50-60 minutes. So it's non-trivial, and this also requires a lot of focus. So sometimes my loops are even longer. But I'm trying to, one, like hopefully kind of shorten a lot of this process, and two, try to like attempt like 2 loops a day. Like I really feel like I need to do this more aggressively in order to improve my speaking skills. So I'm hoping, if I can do like 2 loops a day, hopefully, by the time like early August rolls around, I would have done around like 50-ish prompts, 50-ish prompts with about, 40 to 50 hours of output. And I think that'll just be like really helpful in general. I think like that's kind of the amount I'm targeting, at least like hopefully 30 hours, at max probably like 50. And yeah, I just want to like acknowledge that AI can be unnatural, but unfortunately it is the best tool that I have, unless I want to, work with italki teachers again, which I'm still open to, but it's just, I mean, recently, I mean, my schedule's like really hectic and everything. I don't know how much time I can actually devote to that. And Sensing Neem, specifically is really busy, and so her times are like kind of weird too. So I would have to like book really far ahead in advance. But yeah, I mean, I think this month, up to like August, and I'm not even sure if I'll do like another update until I finish my placement exams, just like so I can have that in my video to talk about. Um, so yeah, so from now until early August, I'm just pretty much just doing output bootcamp. It's like the great lock-in, the great output lock-in, and then really trying to internalize Korean, try to use it, not just be able to listen to it. And so yeah, I think it'll be really fun. It'll be really challenging, but even after just like 3 days of doing this, I already am feeling improvements. So I'm really excited to be able to do that. And obviously, if I can get to a good level, from this output bootcamp, I'll be able to use HelloTalk better. I'll be able to use italki better and all of this. So yeah, I'm really excited for this, and hopefully I will have some good news that the placement exams go well in early August. So yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.